Sai Ram, welcome to the class on biotechnology. Today we are going to speak about principles and process of biotechnology. This chapter in particular is usually considered to be a little complicated by the students, but we have kept it easy and simple. So let's start with the class. So this is the session outline for today. We're just going to talk about the basics of biotechnology, that is the definition, principles and applications, and what is genetic engineering and the techniques used in that, and various new terminology related to biotechnology. And there's one important thing in this whole chapter, that is recombinant DNA. So we're going to talk how it is formed and what is the first recombinant DNA in specific. So that's for today. Let's start with the definition of biotechnology. So as the name suggests, what is biotechnology? Technology or the techniques using living organisms, right? So biotechnology is nothing but we are using techniques using living organisms or the enzymes that they produce. So we use techniques in which living organisms or the enzymes produced by living organisms are used to make products that are useful for human welfare. It is very simple. What we are doing is we are taking living organisms and we use some techniques. We take the living organisms or their enzymes and create products that are useful for human welfare. As simple as that. So what is the proper definition? Definition given by EFB, European Federation of Biotechnology. According to EFB, the definition is it is integration of natural science and organisms. Integration is they collaborated. They got the natural science and the organisms together. The techniques of natural science and organisms are got together. So organisms, what organisms? Either cells of the organisms, other parts of the organisms, some part of the organism, or their molecular analogues. What are molecular analogues? They are either DNA or RNA. So this integration is done so that we get products and services that are useful to us. So this is the proper definition of biotechnology. In this slide, definition of biotechnology, very important, right? And also EFB. What is EFB? It could be a 1-mark question. So I hope it is clear. Here we are using living organisms techniques with living organisms or their enzymes or their parts, and we make products that are useful for human welfare. So that's about definition. Then principles of biotechnology. The whole of biotechnology, it's all based on only 2 principles. One is genetic engineering. The first principle is genetic engineering. So again, as the name suggests, it is engineering related to the gene. So what we are doing is we are changing the chemistry of the gene. What is gene? Either DNA or RNA, right? So we are using techniques to change the chemistry of the gene, right? So genetic engineering is nothing but we change the chemistry of the gene. So when the genotype or the gene is changed, what happens to the phenotype or the physical characteristics? They also change. So if we want to change in the phenotype or in the physical characteristics, what we do is we change the genotype. So the change in the chemistry of the genetic material to get change in the phenotype is genetic engineering. The physical characteristics of the organisms also change. So the main principle, the first principle on which biotechnology is based on is genetic engineering. What is genetic engineering? As the name suggests, we change the gene structure, chemistry, right? So that the physical characteristics also change. The next principle is bioprocess engineering. So what is bioprocess engineering? It is nothing but keeping the environment contamination free. Okay, this is especially when we make products in large quantities in industries like vaccines or antibiotics or enzymes. When we produce in a larger quantity, this comes into picture where sterile environment is very important. Like in industries, we see this huge containers in which we make products. So what happens? Let us take the example of beer. We studied in the chapter microbes that in a large container like this, we put raw material, right? We put raw material in the container, and what do? We add an yeast here, right? We are talking about production of beer. We add yeast. What is the yeast's name? Saccharomyces cerevisiae. Now think that we put the raw material and we put Saccharomyces cerevisiae inside, but what if we add some more bacteria into this? Are we going to get the same end product as beer? No, right? No other organism should be there other than the required organism. So to keep that environment free of other organisms other than the organism required for the production of a particular product is bioprocess engineering, to maintain a sterile ambience. Okay, these are the two core principles of the whole biotechnology. First is genetic engineering, where we change the gene, we change the chemistry of gene so that the physical characteristics also change. Second is to keep the environment sterile or contamination free. No other organism should be there, and this is in particular to production of large quantities of products. So we are done with the definition, we are done with the principles of biotechnology. Now we are going to talk about applications. So where do we use this biotechnology? As the definition suggests, we are using it in production of products and services with desirable outcome. However we want the product to be, we can control it by using biotechnology. First is production of desirable products, right? The next is disease resistant plants, very important. In case the plant has a very good yield but it is not disease resistant, then it's of no use. So first was desirable products, next is disease resistant plants, next is treating genetic disorders. As we are dealing with genes, if there are genetic disorders, we can modify the disorder using the techniques so that this genetic disorder can be treated. So there are three applications: products of desirable outcome, disease resistant plants, and then treating of genetic disorders. Definition: we make products using techniques involving living organisms. Then we come to the principles. There are two principles. What are they? Genetic engineering and bioprocess engineering. Next, applications. There are only three applications: to make products of desirable outcome, then disease resistant plants, and treating genetic disorders. Now let's go further ahead. Techniques in genetic engineering. So we are talking about genetic engineering at length. So before we speak about genetic engineering, let's talk about traditional hybridization. What do we do in normal hybridization? For example, think that we have two plants, plant A and plant B, right? Plant A is of good yield, but it is not disease resistant, whereas plant B is disease resistant. So what do? We breed these two plants, plant A and plant B, right? And we get a hybrid variety which contains both the disease resistance as well as good yield, right? But imagine if one of the plants has undesirable trait, like it can produce toxic substances or it can produce allergens. Then what happens? That undesirable trait also comes to the progeny, which cannot be controlled in general hybridization. So what happens in traditional hybridization? Undesirable genes also will get passed on to the future generations or to the progeny, which cannot be controlled. Whereas in genetic engineering, this is in our hands. We just pick up the desirable traits which we want and then we club them together so that we get progeny which is useful to us. And all the limitedness of the undesirable genes can be removed, right? So genetic engineering techniques overcomes this limitation of having undesirable genes. Next, what are the techniques? So we are talking about the techniques of genetic engineering. As I mentioned before, most important is recombinant DNA. This is very important topic in this whole chapter. So first technique is recombinant DNA technique, and others are gene cloning and gene transfer also. So we are going to talk at length about recombinant DNA technique. So how do we modify the gene? We take up a gene. So how do we modify it? Let's see the steps in genetic modification. First thing is we identify the DNA with desirable genes. Let me talk this with examples so that it's clear to you. There are two bacteria, Salmonella typhimurium and then Escherichia coli. Okay. So the Salmonella typhimurium, it has a characteristics which is it is antibiotic resistant. So it has a gene which is antibiotic resistant. Okay. But E. coli is not resistant to antibiotics. So we have identified a gene in Salmonella typhimurium which is antibiotic resistant. We like this gene. It is desirable gene and we want to transfer it into E. coli which is not antibiotic resistant. So what do? We have identified the gene, identification of DNA with desirable gene. What is it? What is the identification desirable gene? Antibiotic resistance, gene with antibiotic resistance in Salmonella typhimurium. So once we identified this, what do? We introduce this identified gene into the host which doesn't have this gene. So how do we do it? We cut this DNA gene, we cut this gene and we transfer it into the host. This is the host. We cut this desirable gene and we put it into a host which doesn't have this gene. Then what do? We maintain it. How do we maintain it? We see to it that it replicates. Very important. It has to replicate inside the host, right? First we have identified a gene which is desirable. Then we cut it and we put it into a host which doesn't have that gene. And then we make sure that it is maintained. How it is maintained? It is maintained by replication. When it replicates, what happens? It is transferred to the progeny. So it is going to the further generations. Thus, the desirable gene that was there in Salmonella typhimurium has been put into E. coli, and all the rest of the generation progeny of E. coli is going to get this desirable gene. And so here the limitation of all the undesirable genes from Salmonella typhimurium don't get into E. coli because we are just selecting one gene. So the limitation is not there. Whatever we have desired, it comes into the product which we want. So these are the steps in genetic modification. I hope it's clear to you. Before we go any further, let's talk a little bit about DNA. This is like a recap. We have been studying about DNA from our 6th grade, 7th grade on. So what is DNA? DNA, it is double-stranded structure, all of you know this. And then it is negatively charged because of the phosphate group that is present. The backbone is sugar phosphate group. So because of the phosphate group, it is negatively charged. Next point is it is hydrophilic. What is hydrophilic? It is water loving because it has polar bonds. So it is hydrophilic and it has complementary structure. Complementary, whenever there is A, there is T. Whenever there is G, there is C. Whenever there is adenine, there is thymine. Whenever there is guanine, there is cytosine. That is complementary. Always if A is here, there will be T here. Right? Whenever there is G here, there will be C here. Okay, that's about basic about the DNA. Next, we are going to talk about the various new terminology. So, what are the new terminology that we are going to talk about in biotechnology? These are new terminology. So, we have to understand it from the basics, because if these concepts are clear, then the chapter of biotechnology is very easy. The first thing is restriction enzymes. Next is ORI, origin of replication, then plasmid and cloning. Let's go taking each one of us and discuss in length what they are. The first will be restriction enzymes. So first of all, what is a restriction enzyme? It is an enzyme that is obtained from bacteria. As the name suggests, it is an enzyme. From where it is got from bacteria, right? So one thing you have to keep in mind whenever you hear the term restriction enzyme, the picture of a scissor should come into your mind. It is a scissor. What is a restriction enzyme? It is a scissor. What kind of scissor? It is a molecular scissor. Okay, what is a restriction enzyme? It is an enzyme that is obtained from bacteria. What is it? It is a molecular scissor. What does it do? It cuts the DNA. In the previous slide, we have seen how we identify a DNA that is desirable. We cut it and then we put it into the host, right? So this cutting part is done by restriction enzymes. So what do restriction enzymes do? They cut the DNA. They are molecular scissors which cut the DNA. So if there's a strand of DNA, do they cut wherever they want, however they want? No. What they do is they read the DNA. They read the DNA and they cut only at a specific sequence. Okay, let's talk in length about this. What is this specific sequence? I'll give you an example. Imagine there's a restriction enzyme by name X. This is just an example. So this X restriction enzyme, it can read the sequence as GAATTC. All the restriction enzymes can read only 6 nucleotide sequence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So this enzyme with name X can read GAATTC. So whenever this enzyme X reads this sequence, immediately it makes a cut. If this is the DNA, if here is GAATTC, immediately it makes a cut. So every restriction enzyme has its own sequence. No two sequences are the same. Every restriction enzyme has its own sequence which it can read, which is specific to the enzyme, and this sequence is called recognition sequence. Okay. So what did we understand about restriction enzymes? It's a molecular scissor that reads the DNA and makes a cut. Okay. And every restriction enzyme has its own specific sequence which is called recognition sequence. Now further, restriction enzymes are classified as exonucleases and endonucleases. As the name suggests, what is exo? Exo means it makes a cut at the ends of the DNA. These restriction enzymes that make a cut at ends of the DNA. What are endo? Those enzymes that makes the cut within the DNA. It's the ends of the DNA is exo, within the DNA is endo. So until now, I hope it's clear. It's a molecular scissor that makes a cut, reads and makes a cut, and 6 nucleotide sequence which is specific to individual restriction enzyme, and this sequence is called recognition sequence, classified as exonucleases and endonucleases. Exo makes cut at the ends, endo makes cut within the DNA. So here we have some important points, like the first endonuclease that was discovered is HindII. Usually their names are derived from the bacteria from which they are obtained. So this can be a 1-mark question. What was the first endonuclease derived? That was HindII. Now again, this talks about what we spoke before. Every recognition sequence is 6 nucleotide sequence. Okay, and endonuclease, what they do? They cut within the DNA. Alright, ends will be exo, within the DNA will be endo. The specific base sequence is recognition sequence. I told already, the 6 nucleotide sequence which is specific to every individual restriction enzyme is called recognition sequence. So, if any restriction enzyme reads its specific sequence, then only it makes a cut. So, as we spoke about restriction enzyme X, what does it do? It reads GAATTC. Wherever that nucleotide is there, it makes a cut. So now more than 900 restriction enzymes till date, they have been discovered from 230 strains of bacteria. This is also an important point. They can ask how many restriction enzymes have been discovered from how many strains of bacteria. So this whole topic of restriction enzymes is very important. So till now, what did we speak? We spoke about what is restriction enzyme. It's a molecular scissor that reads the 6 nucleotide sequence and makes a cut either within the DNA or at the ends of the DNA. The first endonuclease that was discovered is HIND2. Okay, and the specific sequence is called recognition sequence. Now moving ahead, how do we name the restriction enzymes? Very important topic. It could be a short note. So how do we name these restriction enzymes? Each enzyme is indicated by a specific name. Here is an example. So how do we name? The first alphabet will be the genus of the bacteria. Here E is Escherichia. It's derived from Escherichia coli. So the first will be the genus, right? The first alphabet will be genus. Next will be the 2 alphabets of the species coli. Okay, first is the genus, next is the species, and next is the rough strain from which it is derived. And last, this Roman number will be the order of the discovery. Okay, the first one will be the genus E. coli. It is derived from E. coli. So E stands for Escherichia, and the second 2 stands for the species coli, and then R is the rough strain, and this Roman number in the end, as we saw in HIND2 also, the Roman number indicates the order of discovery. So what is this order of discovery? For example, they make many restriction enzymes from the same genus of a bacteria. So order of discovery means the order in which it has been discovered. Like one restriction enzyme has been discovered first, next is second, next is third. So that is the order of discovery. So remember, first will be genus, next, okay, let's put it like this. First will be genus, next 2 will be species, this will be R for rough strain, and this will be order of discovery. So that's the naming of restriction enzymes. Because these are basic concepts of biotechnology, we are going at a slower pace. Again, we are going to talk what are restriction enzyme, molecular scissors that read and makes a cut with a specific sequence called as recognition sequence, classified as exo and endo. The first endonuclease is HIND2, right? And then we spoke how it is named as genus, species, rough strain, and order of discovery. And there's another important point here, as we spoke about, it reads a 6 nucleotide sequence. So when it comes to endonucleases, they make a cut only at a palindromic nucleotide sequence. What is palindromic? Okay, they say that endonucleases especially will read only a palindromic sequence and then only makes a cut. So what is palindromic? Palindromic is a sequence of base pairs that are read same on the 2 strands. See, if this is a double-stranded DNA, this is 5' to 3'. So, because 5' is here, there will be 3' here, 3' and 5'. So, how do we read this? We read it as GAATTC, right? Now, if we keep the orientation of reading the same, so if we again read it from 5' only, what it will be? It will be GAATTC. It is the same. So if the orientation of reading is kept the same, the sequence should be read the same. It will be GAATTC. It will be the same from here also, GAATTC. So this sequence is called palindromic sequence. There's nothing complicated about it. Just that if the orientation of reading is kept the same, the sequence of base pairs will read the same. Alright. So that is one important point about endonucleases. That's about restriction enzymes. What did we understand? Molecular scissors reads a specific recognition sequence of 6 nucleotides, and especially in endonucleases, it will be palindromic only, and then they make a cut. Alright, I hope it is clear. Then we are going to the next new terminology, ORI. What is origin of replication? As the word suggests, it is the site from where replication starts, right? If this is the chromosome, right? The replication doesn't start anywhere and everywhere. It starts at a specific site. This specific site where the replication starts is called origin of replication. So it is responsible for starting of DNA replication. That's where the replication starts. So why are we talking about it? First, we have cut the DNA, right? So how did we cut? We used the restriction enzymes and made a cut. Now this DNA we take and we put it in the host cell. So where do we put it? We put it in the chromosome. So do we put it anywhere and everywhere? No. We should put it in origin of replication site only. If it is put in other parts of the chromosome, it doesn't replicate. Then it doesn't pass on to the progeny. If we want it to replicate and go into the further progeny, then it has to be put in origin of replication. So what is origin of replication? It is a specific DNA sequence where the replication starts. The name itself suggests very easy. Origin, starting of replication. So what starting of replication? A specific DNA sequence, right? So that's about it. This is describing what I just spoke, that if we do not put it at the right place, it is not inherited into the progeny. So we spoke about restriction enzymes which make a cut. Then we spoke of origin of replication, where that DNA which is cut will be put at the site where replication starts. And then we talk about something called plasmid. Okay, plasmids are present usually in bacterial cells. So these are plasmids. What are plasmids? Plasmids are circular, extra chromosomal. They are not within the chromosome. They are outside the chromosome. So they are extra chromosomal structures which can replicate by themselves. Okay. So they can either integrate, here plasmid integration, they can either integrate with the chromosome of the bacteria, or by themselves also they can replicate. Okay. So these are extra chromosomal. So they have the molecular analog in them. So what are they used for? Why are we talking about plasmids? They are used as vectors. What are vectors? We spoke about vectors in human health and disease. Vectors are carriers of anything. It can be pathogen, it can be the gene. So here we're talking about vector as a carrier of gene. So what we do is, we've cut the DNA using the restriction enzyme. We have identified the site of replication. This is the site of replication in a plasmid. We have identified that, and that is called origin of replication, right? Now what we do is, that cut DNA, we join it here into the plasmid, because plasmids can replicate. So once we put the DNA into the plasmid will replicate, and that DNA will go to the progeny or to the offsprings, right? So these plasmids are basically used as vectors. We spoke about restriction enzymes which make a cut. Then we spoke about the site. Then we spoke about the vectors. Next, what do we do? Cloning. Cloning is just like Xerox. So whenever you read this term, cloning, think of a Xerox machine. So what does cloning do? It makes multiple copies, identical copies of the template DNA. So let's go quickly through this. First, what we did? We identified a desirable gene. Think that this is our desirable gene. Then we took a plasmid which is circular in shape. This is extra chromosomal plasmid. So what do? We cut this DNA which we require from one organism with restriction enzyme. Okay, we cut this, and plasmid also needs a place. So we cut the plasmid also using the restriction enzyme, and we join this here, right? We join this cut DNA into the plasmid. So does the plasmid look the same now? Is its genotype the same? No. It changes into something like this with new DNA into it, right? Once this is done, then using an enzyme called DNA polymerase, we do cloning. Cloning means making multiple copies of the new DNA that is produced. This new DNA is nothing but recombinant DNA. I hope it's clear. We cut the new desired DNA, we put it into the plasmid. The plasmid replicates. This new DNA is rDNA or recombinant DNA, and we make multiple copies of it by using DNA polymerase, and the process of making this multiple copies is called cloning. Okay. And then DNA ligase is nothing but glue. Okay. So whenever you read this term DNA ligase, what is it? It's a glue. So where is the glue used? When we cut the DNA and we put it in the plasmid, how do we stick it? We stick it using DNA ligase. Okay. So vectors we spoke about. Plasmid are vectors, and bacteriophages can also be used as vectors. What are bacteriophages? These are viruses that attack bacteria. So they can also be used as vectors. How do we choose vectors? Vectors are usually chosen by the number of copies they can make. Okay, if some of the plasmids can make 1 copy, some of them can make 90 copies. So whichever can make more copies are selected. So what is cloning? We spoke about Xerox making multiple copies of the template DNA. And what is vector? That which carries anything, that which carries or introduces the desirable gene into the host organism. So what are the new terminology we spoke about? We spoke about restriction enzyme. We spoke of origin of replication. We spoke of plasmids, cloning, DNA ligase. Even though they seem to be very complicated, but if we identify them with the terms which I suggested, it's very easy. The cloning is, you can identify it with Xerox, and DNA ligase with glue, and then restriction enzymes with a scissor, right? Now let's talk about recombinant DNA, very important topic in biotechnology. So what are the steps in the formation of recombinant DNA? Now we already spoke about it. It's like a revision. First, what are we doing? We are identifying the gene of interest. If it is a DNA strand, okay, this is the site of interest for us, for example. So we have identified that gene. We want this gene only. And then we chose a plasmid, which is a circular extrachromosomal structure. We identified the plasmid too. Now what do? Cut the plasmid and the gene with restriction enzyme. So we made a cut here. We made a cut here. How do we make this cut? By seeing the origin of replication. We'll check where is the origin of replication. Only there we make a cut, because only there we introduce the gene so that it replicates. So what do? We cut using restriction enzymes, right? Because it's a molecular scissor. Next, what do? We use DNA ligase to join the gene into the plasmid. So this gene is glued here into this site by using DNA ligase. Okay, we used DNA ligase and we glued the cut DNA into the plasmid. Next, what do? Now, does the plasmid remain the same? No. How does it look? It looks something like this. We introduced a new DNA into it. So does the genotype remain the same? No. It looks different. So this DNA which we formed using the gene of interest, this DNA which we formed is called recombinant DNA, the new DNA that we formed, right? So what do we do with this plasmid now? We clone it to make multiple copies of this template, right? From cloning the recombinant DNA, What is cloning? Forming copies of desirable gene. This is our desirable gene, the recombinant DNA. So we make multiple copies of it. And then we obtain many new organisms with our desired gene. So these are the steps in the formation of recombinant DNA. First we identify the gene, then we identify the plasmid, we make a cut in both of them using the scissor, that is restriction enzyme. Then we glue this gene of interest into the plasmid by using DNA ligase. Then we get a new gene, that is recombinant DNA. And what do we do further? We make further copies, identical copies of the template, of the same template, right? So that we get many organisms of the same gene. So this is another picture which is describing the steps. So this is vector. This is the plasmid, right? This is the plasmid and this is the desired gene, right? So what do? We take up the desired gene, we take up a plasmid, right? Now how does restriction enzyme work? That's what this picture is showing. It reads the sequence, right? It reads the sequence GAA-TTC. It read the sequence. Then what did it do? It made a cut here, right? And it made a cut here. So this part is cut and this part is cut. Now how do they join it? They join it by glue called DNA ligase, right? The extra parts are removed and whichever combination we want, we glue them together, right? DNA fragments are joined at the sticky ends. These loose ends are called sticky ends. So how do they join the sticky ends? By using DNA ligase. Then what DNA is formed? The new DNA that is formed is nothing but recombinant DNA. These are the steps. So we identified the gene, we identified the plasmid, we made cut using the restriction enzymes, then we stuck them using DNA ligase, and the new gene that is formed is recombinant DNA, or the new DNA that is formed is recombinant DNA. So now we got our recombinant DNA. This is the new DNA. So what do we do now? We take this new DNA and we introduce into the bacterial cells, right? We got a template. So we introduce that into the cell or the host cell which does not have a DNA of this type. Alright. If you remember, we spoke about Salmonella typhimurium and E. coli, right? So from Salmonella typhimurium, the antibiotic resistant gene, we cut it, we put it into a plasmid, we made a recombinant DNA. Now this recombinant DNA, we are putting it into E. coli. This is an example we are talking about. So what did we do? We put into another organism which does not have a gene. And then what does it do? It replicates. The cells will divide and make multiple copies with this new gene. And this is nothing but, what is making of multiple copies called? Cloning. This is nothing but Xerox. Okay. So once we get the recombinant DNA, we introduce into a host cell which does not have the desired gene, and then we make multiple copies, which is called cloning. So that's about recombinant DNA, the steps in the formation of recombinant DNA. I'll quickly revise. We identify the gene of interest, we identify a plasmid, we make a cut at a specific sequence using a scissor called restriction enzyme, both in the plasmid and in the gene. And then what do? We stick using DNA ligase this desired gene of interest, right, into the plasmid. And now we get a plasmid with a different genotype, which is called recombinant DNA. And this recombinant DNA is put into the host cell so that it replicates and divides into many cells with a new genotype, right? And this process of replication and making multiple copies is called cloning. That's all is recombinant DNA. So let's talk a little bit about the first artificial recombinant DNA. The first artificial recombinant DNA was accomplished by Stanley Cohen and Herbert Boyer. These names are important These two scientists discovered it in the year 1972. This is an important question. It could be a 1 mark. Who are the scientists who discovered recombinant DNA and in which year? So here comes Salmonella typhimurium, which I was talking about, in which there was antibiotic resistant gene. This antibiotic resistant gene was there in Salmonella typhimurium. So what did they do? The DNA for antibiotic resistance from Salmonella was cut. How did they cut? Using restriction enzymes, right? And they introduced into a plasmid vector, okay? And cutting is done by restriction enzymes both in the plasmid as well as in the desired gene. Then what they did? The cut DNA was linked using DNA ligase. It is our glue. DNA ligase is our glue. So we cut the DNA, we cut the plasmid, and we got this DNA, new DNA of interest glued to the plasmid. Then new circular autonomously replicating DNA is formed. This new circular DNA is called recombinant DNA. Okay, that is made in the plasmid. This recombinant DNA was introduced into a host organism which does not have a gene of antibiotic resistance, that is E. coli. Right? E. coli is not like Salmonella typhimurium which already had antibiotic resistance. So that gene we introduced into E. coli. Then what we did, it replicated in the E. coli. How did it replicate? It replicated by DNA polymerase enzyme. Once it is replicated, cloning is done. We get multiple copies of E. coli with this new gene of antibiotic resistance. So that's with the picture. What did we do? We identified the gene of interest, right? And then we introduced into the plasmid, and then we got the sticky ends glued, right? And we got this recombinant DNA, and the recombinant DNA has been introduced into the host cell, right? And we made multiple copies of it by the process of cloning. What does this suggest? Now E. coli is having a gene with antibiotic resistance. So if we place this E. coli, right, in a medium with antibiotics, it should grow because it has antibiotic resistance. All those cells which do not have antibiotic resistance will not grow. And all those cells that have included this gene into them and got this recombinant DNA into them with this new gene which they have obtained from Salmonella typhimurium which already had, all those cells of E. coli, all those organisms, fresh batch of E. coli which are resistant to antibiotic will grow in a medium which is kept in a medium with antibiotics. So that's about the recombinant DNA. So in today's class, we just spoke about the basics of biotechnology, the definition, the principles, the application, right? And all the various new terminologies like restriction enzymes, origin of replication, cloning, plasmids, and then how recombinant DNA is formed. So this is a home assignment. Let's speak about how to get the answers for these questions. First is definition of biotechnology. This has to be the definition given by EFB, which is there in the first slide. And then what are the two core techniques? We spoke about how we alter the genes and how we keep the environment sterile. So this is the answer for two core techniques. What are restriction enzymes? Explain their types. We spoke at length about restriction enzymes, how they act as scissor, they read the DNA 6 nucleotide sequence which is specific to individual restriction enzyme, and this is called recognition sequence, and in endonucleases it is palindromic and there are two types. So we have to explain the types. Then what is ORI? Origin of replication. As we spoke, in a chromosome there will be a specific site where replication starts. So this is about that. What are the steps in formation of recombinant DNA? We spoke at length about this, how we cut the gene of interest, put it in a plasmid, and then the plasmid is put into a host organism, and we get a recombinant DNA which is put in the host, and it replicates, and then it forms multiple copies. Who made the first artificial recombinant DNA? We should name the scientist and the year. So that's all for today's session. In the next class, we are going to talk about in detail further about biotechnology, and that will be the last class for the principles and processes. Thank you so much. Sai Ram.